And take your seats. I am Mariah Tolgard. I am one of the pastors here at Hamlin Church. And on behalf of Hamlin Church and our Earth Keepers group and Unidos, I am so pleased to welcome you here this evening and so glad that you're here for this really important conversation for Word 4. Just a little bit as we get started, a couple of logistics, practical points. We have restrooms that are out this door. There's an all-gender restroom and a women's room, and there are other restrooms down the hall. If you need it, help yourselves. Also, if you have anything that rings or dings, maybe take a minute to silence that or turn that down for now. We are also very pleased to welcome folks who maybe have their first time being here. We love to host events at Hamlin Church and to open the doors up to the community, so we're so glad that you're here. We have one kind of general operating expectation for these circumstances and for when we gather in community, and that is that we assume the best intent of one another. And so as you are listening to your neighbors, listening to the candidates, asking your questions, let's just hold that as our kind of way of being together in community. Environmental justice is really important to us here at Hamlin Church. As I mentioned, we have a group called our Earth Keepers, and we actually consider all of us in this church to be Earth Keepers and have a sacred commitment to caring for creation and for one another, and have also been active in projects with the city in such as giving feedback on the Climate Action Resilience Plan a few years ago and working to replant trees in the neighborhood after the Emerald Ash Borer tree cutting down several years ago. And I hope that we can partner with you all, with Unidos and other similar issues, and with our city government that represents us to care for all of us to do our part of caring for creation. Hopefully when you came in tonight, you likely came down the alley and you saw a whole bunch of mud. Well, that is our sprout garden. It will soon be alive with the fruits of creation, and it is cared for by children and youth in this church throughout the summer, and the produce is distributed in the neighborhood to seniors in our neighborhood. So if you'd like to check out our sprout garden or walk through our grounds, you know that you are most welcome here. So we are so delighted to have you with us tonight, and give thanks for this opportunity to be in conversation together. And it's my pleasure now to introduce Mary Pat for Unidos.
Thank you, Mariah, for that warm welcome. My name is Mary Pat Dunlap, and I'm a resident of Ward 4, and I'm a leader for Unidos. Sorry, I'm a little taller than the average group. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Unidos and why this climate justice work is so important to me. In 1988, I lived with my family in our first house on Hamlin across from Horton Park, not very far from here. For anybody old enough, there are a few people in the room who were alive in 1988. You'll remember that summer was brutally hot and dry. It didn't rain from the beginning of May till the end of July. It was in the 90s 44 times, and some of those I think were in the hundreds. And Horton Park had just been planted with baby trees, and they were all going to die. So our neighbors got the city to install a spigot on a fire hydrant, and all summer long we watered the trees with buckets and wagons and people power our kids. You should check it out because most of those trees survived and are mature now. And that's a great story. But as we face more and more climate damage, we know the city cannot leave solutions to neighbors alone. I grew up in this city and I've lived here my whole life. I remember a time when there were fireflies in our yard and there was no such thing as smog. There certainly were not Canadian wildfires polluting our air for days on end. There were cathedral arches of elm trees throughout the whole city. And my heart hurts because my grandchildren will never really get to know the beauty that I grew up with and took for granted. So our world is changing, and I know it, and you know it too. So I got involved with Unidos through my faith community, similar to this church here. We believe that climate change work is vital for the planet and also that it's an equity issue. Lower income families have a higher energy burden and less resources to pay for it. Churches, businesses, and individuals are interested in switching to clean energy, but we need the city to lead. Instead of asking each neighbor and institution to find their own path, we need policies and resources so we can make this happen together. UNIDO St. Paul is committed to leading community-scale climate action to help St. Paul transition off of fossil fuels. And we have accomplished a lot in just a few years. UNIDO's worked with city officials to enable the building of a networked geothermal system of 1,000 units of housing and businesses at the Heights in the northeast corner of St. Paul. UNIDO's gathered hundreds of signatures. I'm supposed to demonstrate. Oh, this next. And formed a resolution to the city council to declare that St. Paul is in a climate emergency. The resolution passed and is now part of city policy. UNIDO's worked closely with the city council last year to get dedicated funding for programs that would benefit the most energy burdened households in St. Paul. Unfortunately, most of that money went into the general fund. Climate resilience and energy infrastructure currently make up less than 1/10 of 1%. You heard that right, 1/10 of 1%. We need the city to do more. You may already know that St. Paul is Xcel's biggest customer nationwide. And for the first time in 20 years, we have the opportunity to renegotiate our contract with them. We need the city to negotiate a contract that is all about putting the needs of citizens over needs of corporations. UNIDOS has gone door to door in every ward in St. Paul to talk about climate change and how it's affecting our neighbors' lives. What have we heard in our conversations? Well, Zion Commons, just a few blocks from here, would be happy to host a geothermal well for their surrounding community, and 80% of neighbors really want that to happen. In the last 6 weeks, over 100 neighbors in Ward 4 have signed postcards asking the city to do more to address climate change. First-time homeowners were horrified by their Xcel bills, some of them up to $500 a month in the winter, and as they said, it wasn't even a bad winter. Everybody's homeowner's insurance has skyrocketed, and entire blocks are missing their trees due to disease, drought, storms, and neighbors are hearing from the city that it might take years to replace them. Mature trees lost equals hotter living conditions for the people on those blocks. So you've heard a bit about my story and learned a little about UNIDOS, and you've learned that the citizens of St. Paul are concerned about climate change and that it's directly impacting their lives. We look forward to learning. If you become Ward 4's council person, will you work for real change for the citizens of St. Paul? Ward 4 has a history of electing climate justice champions, and we need one now more than ever. We're excited to hear your vision for our ward. And now I'm going to turn it over to Matt, who will be our facilitator for this evening. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Mary Pat. My name is Matt Gallo. I am a resident here in Ward 4, live in Como Park. I am a leader at UNIDOS, and I will be moderating our candidate forum here tonight. In addition to some of Mary Pat's own experiences with climate change, I also have some experiences of my own. I will say that as a new resident of St. Paul, having moved here just last year, that a lot of the experiences that Mary Pat went into about smog and fireflies are totally foreign to me. There's lots of smog around today. There's not really a lot of fireflies. And I do wonder what future St. Paul residents are going to experience when they move to the city 30, 40, 50 years from now. I'm originally from Long Island, New York State on the coast, and I can tell you firsthand how devastating climate change can be. I have had relatives, when Hurricane Sandy hit us in 2012, literally swim through the streets to escape the flooding that was drowning their entire communities. Climate change is bad, folks. So with that being said, on a very positive note, let's dive into the outline for the groundwork for our candidate forum here today. So we have 3 questions that we will be asking each of our candidates here. All these questions were shared with our candidates in advance, and they will have up to 4 minutes to respond. If a candidate exceeds their 4-minute time allotted by 10 seconds, an alarm will sound and we will move on to the next candidate's response.
Accountability.
We will also be rotating the questions that we ask to the candidates to make sure that each of them has an opportunity to be both the first and the last person to answer a question. So we'll just start, from my perspective here to my right. Molly is the first person to my right, so we'll just start off with her for the first question, and then we'll move to Cole, and then we'll move to Chantil, and then for our second question, we'll start with Cole, and then we'll just keep rotating through the candidates. Keep in mind, this is a candidate forum. This is not a debate, so there will not be crosstalk allowed between the candidates when they are giving their answers. This is for us as the community to understand where each of these candidates falls when it comes to climate change. There will also be no audience questions as well. We have a very, very tight schedule tonight. But for our folks who are attending on Facebook virtually via live stream, you may ask questions in the comments of that live stream if you would like. And we do encourage each of the 3 candidates here tonight to potentially address any of those questions once the forum has concluded. Finally, I think it's important to highlight that this is the only candidate forum for any issue whatsoever that is being addressed to the Ward 4 City Council candidates. This is just a really great opportunity for us in the community to just learn more about these candidates, get to know who they are, and I think it's a really remarkable insight for Unidos to organize this together. So that all being said, let's dive into the forum itself. So to start things off, I'm going to invite each candidate to share a 2-minute introduction about why they're running and what we can count on you for when it comes to climate. Molly, we'll start with you.
Awesome. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. How are we doing? Volume? Good? Cool. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to Hamlin Church for hosting this conversation. And thank you to Unidos for making this forum happen, for giving us this space to talk about such a pressing issue, and for all of the work you all do for our city. For those I don't know, I'm a lawyer, a nonprofit leader, a lifelong St. Paulite, and a mom raising my son here in Hamlin Midway. Walking into this conversation tonight, there are 3 things on my mind. First, climate change is here and it is affecting us right now. We are experiencing the consequences on a daily basis throughout our city, and we need to meet the challenge in a way that understands that urgency. Second, the time for thinking small when it comes to how we address climate change is long since past. The time for talking the talk but not walking the walk or tinkering around the edges, I don't know if it was ever here. It certainly is not here now. We must commit to bold, systemic, strategic solutions in order to meet our climate goals, goals that we have to achieve if we are going to sustain a livable planet. And third, as we work towards our climate solutions, I am mindful of long-standing disparities in the city of St. Paul and the need to center our most vulnerable communities as we work towards our climate future, our low-income communities, our communities of color, the immigrant population in the city of St. Paul need to be at the forefront of our conversations and solutions when it comes to climate. I've spent my career fighting for big systemic reform. I work to completely remake our legal system so that it works for people, not corporate power. And I know how daunting it can be to work on a challenge as big as climate change. Our work in this room and together as a community is to find real solutions and show people a path forward. I'm so excited to be here tonight having this conversation and look forward to doing this work with all of you. Thank you.
Cole, go ahead.
I was waiting for the time. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Cole Hansen. I am a proud dad of a St. Paul Public Schools kindergartner who's about to graduate from kindergarten. I am a public health educator at the University of Minnesota, focused on health and nutrition. I'm a dietitian over there. And I'm a community organizer working in this community that I moved to 15 years ago. And it's changed a lot since I moved here for Hamlin University and get to just see how things have changed. I grew up on a farm though. And one thing I learned very early, and I was taught very early, is you can do whatever you want so long as you get your chores done. And I think we have arrived at a point in St. Paul where we as a city are asking the city to get its chores done. I think climate change and addressing climate change is one of those chores. That is an A1 top line priority. Because if we're going to make a difference, if we're going to live in this city, we need to address things now, and we can't put them off. And as a public health educator, it's my job to focus on prevention. So these things kind of go together. What does prevention mean for me? It means talking about the whole gamut of what we're doing in St. Paul. Prevention means talking about opioid use on the train and safety for our neighbors. Because if people don't feel safe taking the train, that's an incredible investment in our green infrastructure that's gone to waste. If we don't make an investment in community buildings like the CVS at the corner of Snelling University, then we're giving up busy, beautiful intersections for corporate greed. And if we don't make real innovation, a municipal grocery store in downtown, since we don't have one, then we're never going to meet the actual moment with what we actually need. I am looking forward to helping this city get the chores done as your future councilman, and I look forward to spending a lot more time talking about the environment and what we need to do to protect our city from climate change. Thank you.
Whenever you're ready.
Hello, my name is Chantel Allen. I am currently sitting on the St. Paul School Board. I'm an organizer. I'm a proud fourth generation Rondo kid who grew up in this community. I've spent about 18 years in Ward 4 over my lifespan. I won't tell you how old I am, but I'll say that. And one of the reasons why I'm an activist, right? And I understand how environmental justice overlaps with social justice. I've been a fighter for social justice for many, many years. And one of the things that I recognize is in our city right now, the thing that really pushed me to run, because that was the question, right? Why are we running? So one of the things that really pushed me to run is we currently have a referendum in our school district that's taxing our homeowners tremendously. And I know I'm a big and tall person, but I know I'm not the only big and tall person in this city. But when I go shop, I have to shop outside of the city. And while I'm out there, I grab something to eat, I get some gas, I get the things that I need, and I'm dropping my tax dollars outside of the city. How many of us in the city of St. Paul are constantly dropping our tax dollars outside of the city? We need to build a city where people come and drop the tax dollars here in this city. Come to our soccer stadium, stay in the hotel, hang out, do the things that are beautiful in the city of St. Paul, and then go back to Albert Lee for for your work week. But one thing I know is that as long as we're dropping our tax dollars in other cities, the burden of the issues, the things that we're trying to address in this city are going to fall on our regular homeowners. And we need to do something different. The long game cannot just continue to be referendums on top of referendums on top of referendums to fund our schools and our public safety and all of the things that we need here in this city. We've got to come up with a real long game that makes sense.
So we'll now start off with Cole for our 3 prepared questions. As a reminder, each candidate has up to 4 minutes to answer each question. Question 1. The state of Minnesota is committed to reaching net zero carbon emissions by 2050, meaning we have 25 years to transition off dependence on burning gas to clean heat like geothermal. What is your plan to get the entire city off gas by 2050?
Well, first and foremost, as a public health educator, my priority is on making sure we're doing the prevention that we need to ahead of time. We are still learning about the impacts of natural gas combustion in our homes, whether it's our gas stoves, whether it's our furnaces, fireplaces, those sorts of things. And while we don't need to wait for Interstate 94's impact on our health, we do know that it's better just to get rid of it. So prevention means a full electrification of our building code going forward. I think that if you're building in this city, there's no reason for you to be building in the infrastructure we are asking you to politely no longer use. That makes a big change. It means a lot of changes will go forward. And that means the city's going to need to partner with our trade union partners, with our development partners, and make sure we're getting all the technical assistance needed and applied in the correct and most impactful places so we can make this transition safely, effectively, and affordably. Next, we need to scale up geothermal and district energy. We are spoiled because we have district energy right in downtown that powers everything and warms and cools everything from one end to CHS at the other. It is an incredible system. And as it was mentioned at the top, there's already advocates and leaders in our community right here in the Midway, just down the street, who are trying to get the same thing here. We don't need to go anywhere else for these ideas. We have them right here. So let's lean in and use the expertise that we have from all these different technical engineers, all these different organizations, and we're in Ward 4 or 5 different colleges, universities. We have a lot of resources we can put to the test to make a difference and make an impact on this question. And most importantly, individual homeowners can get involved too. If you're considering a retrofit, we should support you in doing that, especially if you are a landlord and you're covering multiple units. It is about time the city gets involved in putting its foot forward and says, if we're asking you to do something, we're going to help you get that thing done. That means cooperative purchasing agreements, being creative about how we approach solar. There's many things the city can do, but most importantly, it needs to meet homeowners, neighbors, landlords, renters where they are. The last thing is weatherization. I was mentioning this to somebody when I walked in, but it's about $1,500 to get around 900 square feet of attic insulated with blown in. Don't ask me why. And that saves hundreds of dollars a month on gas expenses. We are giving money away. And most importantly, it is our most vulnerable, our most affected, and our most low-income families and renters who are giving that money away. There's no reason we need to be doing that. We can be preventing further harm of these communities and extracting wealth from these communities. And instead of shipping it off to Excel, we should ship it off to other communities and other parts of our city that need it. We should be investing in re-insulation programs. Our home program, we already have these things, but are we implementing them intentionally for everyone? What is the burden to apply for this money? It should be easy to do the right thing in this city. And right now, I think everyone agrees it's extremely hard to do the right thing in this city. At the end of the day, we have been paying enough. It is time to ask the polluters in our city and the polluters who power our city to be held accountable and pay it forward. Because we've been doing what we can. It's pretty hard to do the right thing in this environment. We're gonna do it anyway. So let's ask them to come along and twist our arm when they say no. Thank you. Back to you and then back to Molly.
It's all you, Chantel.
Well, I'm definitely going to say clean electric, geothermal and solar, of course, right? But we need to build the culture of it. We need to make sure that we're implementing this in a way that it creates sustainability. It's not just about a campaign. It's really about people truly understanding and being invested in this process. One of the ways when I think about that, the first thing I think of is including the youth. I don't see a lot of youth in this space, which is concerning to me. I see one who just gave me a side eye.
You talking about the baby?
Which is concerning to me because this is their future that we're working on. And I know that, just a few years back, one of the youth that I was working with somehow got into a certificate program and got certified to put solar panels on. And she was making way more money than me. And I was like, wait a minute, this seems like this is something that could work. We have the county who has earn to learn programs. We have the city that has the Right Track program, and we have the public schools that also have tech programs, technical education programs. Why aren't we working collectively to implement those so that we could start to build the culture from the bottom up? Once they're invested in the work, they're invested in making sure that everybody's getting the opportunity for solar energy. And to be honest with you, I don't know how many homes exist, not just in this city, but across the world. But it seems like it's a lucrative job to give a young person so that they can actually start to close that poverty gap at the same time. So to me, it seems like it's a 2-for-1. It also helps to build the real culture of clean energy and gives them the understandings to look into things like something I just learned, at Unidos that gas stoves contribute to asthma. Well, this is an issue that I'm working on with like 30 or 40 Rondo elders who are concerned about the high asthma rates, right? They started off with it being targeted at Maxfield School, but then we realized as we kind of researched and surveyed that it goes beyond just Maxfield School. This is an issue because when they put in 94, the elders didn't want to create more of a divide, so they asked them to not put walls up. So Maxfield School has the highest asthma rates in the entire state. When I think about this and the information that I learned from them, it makes me want to go back to my group of elders and say, hey, maybe we should do a survey to see how many folks have gas stoves in this community, because these homes are older, right? And then start to really look at how is this impacting our communities. And like I said, I'm an activist, and I'm here to fight for what's right for humans. You know, some of this stuff overlaps because I have my own personal experience as being a Black lesbian woman in the world. But the reality is that all of this stuff is impacting humanity. And so before I'm a Black Lives Matter activist, I'm a humanitarian and I care about people. And so when we think about these type of issues, we have to start to do what's right for the future of our young people.
Thank you. Holly, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So in order to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050, we have to do two things. We have to bring down the demand for energy, and we have to ensure that any remaining demand can be met via clean energy rather than fossil fuels. So that's the basic premise we're working with. When we're thinking about how do you do that at a city level, we need to think about what are the two biggest sources of municipal emissions: transportation and buildings, how we heat and cool our homes, our businesses, and our other institutions in the city. When we're talking about this question of how do we get away from gas in the next 25 years, how do we get away from natural gas, the real question is about that building component, right? How do we heat and cool our buildings in a way that is clean and sustainable and not reliant on natural gas? There are a few of the different things that we can do, and I will say the thing that gives me an incredible amount of hope, even as we have this daunting conversation, and others have alluded to this, is that we actually know what many of these solutions are. And in some instances, we're already doing them here in the city of St. Paul. We just need to do them at scale. So the first option is to support the electrification of our homes, our businesses, our churches, and our other institutions. We've built out, through the support of people in this room, programs that get us down that path. So we have the Healthy Home Program in the city of St. Paul, which is a pre-weatherization effort. Cole spoke about that, about the need to better insulate our homes and ensure that people were bringing down utility bills in the short term. That gears us up to electrify those same homes and those same buildings. That's what the Power of Home program does. It moves us to that full electrification to get individual buildings off of natural gas. Right now, those programs are supporting homeowners. We have to build them out so that they're supporting renters, so that they're supporting small businesses, so that they're supporting churches. But we know what that looks like. We just have to fund it. We have to get the job done. The second option, so there's electrification, right? That's one way to get buildings off of natural gas. The second option is our geothermal energy networks, and that's something that Unidos has been leading the charge on. You heard it from Mary Pat. We've seen what that looks like. We've seen it at the Heights on the east side of St. Paul, where 1,000 new housing units are going to be entirely dependent on geothermal energy rather than natural gas. That is a huge accomplishment, and that's what we should be working towards across our city. We know that that takes a significant capital investment. It's not cheap. We know that we are dealing with tough economic times at the local and national level. And so that's why we have to be doing both. We have to electrify and we have to work towards geothermal energy. When it comes to new buildings, again, others have mentioned this. We know that we have to continue to build our strong, sustainable building plan in order to ensure that every time a new building comes up in the city of St. Paul, it is clean from the very beginning. It's electrified, it is relying on clean energy, it never uses gas at all. So again, we know what these solutions are. They're not easy, but they are doable, and we have a roadmap. What we need is the political will. And you've heard it already here tonight. The Ward 4 Council Office has a long history, thanks to Council President Jalali, thanks to Council Member Stark, of being our leaders on climate action. They have worked closely with the folks like Unidos who are running the ground game outside of City Hall, and they have done the work to organize other council members, city departments, and even the mayor's office to get us across the finish line and actually ensure that the city puts its money where its mouth is when it comes to climate change. It's going to be critical as we move into our next budget cycle, as we move into, again, these very challenging economic times that we're facing, that we have that type of champion in the Ward 4 office. Somebody who can coordinate with our groups that are working outside of City Hall, somebody who can bring the rest of the council along with UNIDOS and our other organizers, and ensure that we actually invest in these programs that we know will work to get our city off gas by 2050.
Thank you, Molly. So for our second question here, we will start with Chantal. The question is, what is your plan to help the most vulnerable households reduce cost burdens from climate, such as insurance premium increases, high energy bills, storm damage recovery, and health impacts? You have 4 minutes.
I mean, I'm just going to start with my own personal experience. I'm a renter, and I just recently moved from the Lyric to a home in Hamlin Midway area. First of all, it was really hard because a lot of our properties are owned by these companies now. And, you know, I found a nice place that felt like St. Paul. And so I signed the lease because everything seemed cool. I did a walkthrough. And in the lease, it said as is. And in my mind, I'm thinking as is like no paint, no new this, no new that, right? No, they mean that they're not even going to clean the ducts. They didn't clean the floors. They didn't paint anything. They didn't clean anything. They literally got the keys from the former tenant at noon and handed them to me at 1 o'clock. And so it was my responsibility. Now I'm capable of hiring somebody to come do duct cleaning and clean up the yard and the piles of mess that they left back there, right? So that we don't have any issues. But if I'm a low income person, I can't afford something like that. And so the things that I saw in these ducts when they cleaned them, I can tell is clearly contributes to the issues that we have. There's also a fireplace in this home. So that I'm sure that, you know, they clean that out, but I'm sure that that contributes to that. How do we put some mandates on landlords? And I'm not talking about single family owner landlords, because those folks take care of their homes. I'm talking about these big companies of people who don't even live in this country, but they own a bunch of our properties and don't care how our communities are dealing with the emissions in the air, the things that they might be drawing around from not taking care of their properties, the dangers that they might. How do we start to that's what I want to do, right? I want to put some accountability points on some of these big companies, some of these big developers, and make sure that we're weatherizing homes, making sure that we can force them, if possible, force them, it is possible. All things are possible, right? To put in electric stoves, like I talked about before. When I moved into the Lyric, that was the first time I ever had an electric stove. And I remember like telling my doctor, like, I don't need those allergy meds anymore. I don't know what happened, but I don't need that stuff anymore. But guess what? I've only been in this new house for a month and I'm back on all of my allergy meds. And so when we think about like how that impacts not just my health, but how does that impact our academic outcomes? So how does that impact the success of our society? Because when we have students that are failing in schools, they don't show up well in our communities and our societies when they turn 18, 19, and 20. And so when we look at the big picture of this situation, we really have to look at the big picture of it. It's not just about this one thing. This impacts us on all different levels. And so one of the things that I'm making sure that I'm gonna do is tap in with people that know, that are experts, because I am not an expert. I'm an expert at social justice. I'm an expert at youth advocacy. I'm an expert at organizing. I'm an expert basketball coach. Y'all didn't know that. But I am not an expert at environmental justice and making sure that I'm tapping in so that I can learn from folks and advocate and carry the voice of the people that elected me into the seat. I know it's confusing.
Okay.
I think
Molly is
Molly's
next.
second.
Okay.
Yep.
Right, that's
then
right.
you go last.
Yeah.
They all speak up a little bit more.
Sure.
Eat the mic. That's what I'm always told and always failing to do. Yes.
Mike.
So I love this question because it's not just about how do we mitigate the risks of climate change down the road? How do we hit our goals in 2030, 2040, and 2050? But what this question gets at is how do we care for our community as folks experience these climate consequences right here and right now? I will say, largely thanks to a conversation I had with Maddie, who many of you know, a couple of months back, I've been doing a lot of thinking about how is climate change impacting my life already. I started to think about, wow, it's kind of weird that I've lived in my house for 2.5 years and already had to replace the roof because of immense hail damage from a summer storm. It's kind of weird that my basement that doesn't flooded last summer because of the rainfall totals that we got in just one storm. I've started to think about what does it mean to be raising my son in a community where we know he is at greater risk of developing long-term health complications because of our proximity to 94. The toll that climate change is taking on our community members, on all of us here in this room, is very real, and we need to be thinking about how do we support folks in the here and now. Short term, that looks like increasing our funding in order to fully fund our climate initiatives. So thanks again to the work of Unidos and partners, we have the ability to collect franchise fees here in the city of St. Paul for 2 additional months. That's a significant source of revenue that we did not have access to just a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, last year, the city council made the decision to only collect those franchise fees from 1 month rather than 2, impacting our ability to fully fund these programs that we need. So my first priority when it comes to climate change in City Hall is ensuring that we take full account of that revenue stream and get that up to 2 additional months of franchise fee collection in order to fund programs like the Power of Home, like Healthy Home, those programs that help our most vulnerable, lowest income residents relieve their energy burden while working to meet those long-term climate goals that we have. I also think it's critical that we invest in programs like the City of St. Paul Emergency Rehab Loan Program that provides no interest loans to low-income members of our community who have been hit by storms and are dealing with structural damage of their home because of climate change. We need to fund programs like that and others that will support folks who are working to recover as we experience these climate-related disasters in the here and now. So that's short term. Fund the programs that we already have, make sure that we bring in the revenue that we need. Medium term, we're going to have to get more creative about how we support the members of our community who are most impacted by climate change. The city of Stonington, Connecticut, small community on the East Coast, but they're innovating when it comes to what it can look like to support folks who are living in climate impacted areas. They've invested in climate informed zoning so that they ensure that no new development is happening in the parts of the city that are most impacted by climate change. And they're actually engaging in voluntary buyouts of low-income residents who live in those high-risk areas to help them move to safer, more stable parts of the community. That also then frees up that land to engage in climate-friendly land use practices that help us to mitigate the consequences of climate change long-term. So in the medium term, we've got to be looking at those creative solutions and learning from what other cities across the country are doing. Finally, long-term, we have to fundamentally reimagine our built environment. The way we have built our city ensures that we exacerbate climate change and that the burden is placed on our lowest income, most vulnerable residents. We have to build a more dense city. We have to make it easier to live in St. Paul without driving a car. We have to make it easier to walk, bike, take the bus, take the train, anywhere that you want to go. Ultimately, it's going to require that type of reimagination if we are going to build a truly sustainable future for the planet.
Thank you. Cole, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So I don't know who was watching the weather yesterday or the news, but you probably saw there was an air advisory. I think it was the first one of summer. Very exciting. Last year, I think I spent more time in a mask outside than I had ever spent in my entire life, except with the exception of the pandemic. Thanks to wildfire smoke. Stuff's here. And when I want to take my daughter out to go teach her how to ride her bike, I got to put a mask on her because I don't want her to get asthma. This is just where we're living now. And it's an uncomfortable reality and something we have to sit with. And then what? Right? What do we do now? First and foremost, I think that the folks who caused the problem deserve a place in cleaning it up. And here in our city, that would take the shape of a climate investment fund that is going to make a difference and make resources available to folks in our city so we can start addressing these problems in a reactive way, because trees will fall, wind will come, but also in a preventative way, because not every tree needs to fall. Not every storm needs to hit us the same way. So first and foremost, what would we do? Well, we're going to start again at prevention. Let's look at our worst, least served communities, our most underdeveloped populations, and say, what can we do to build out your home, reinvest in your property, whether you're a landlord taking care of it, whether you're a renter there and you found your landlord is amenable to supporting it, or you're a homeowner, new, been here forever. Your home deserves to be a shelter for you and your family. And so that means we need to step up and support you in that. Unsustainable energy costs are just a part of that problem. Whether we're considering building codes and the types of shingles that go on our roofs, we need to look at it in every single way. A class 4 shingle is not much more than a class 3 these days. And you can throw a tin can at 100 miles an hour at a class 4 and it's going to be fine. But many roofers won't reach out to you with that option. That's not what they come to you with. You could get lower home insurance premiums for that sort of thing. We should be prioritizing the folks that do business in this city, making sure they have the resources to do the business we need them to do in our city. Next are storm recovery grants. For every family on a fixed income, whether you're a senior or you're benefiting from one of the many programs that we have to support you, $1,000 to $1,500 deductible to replace your roof is a no-go. That's it. That might be everything you have. It shouldn't be that way, and we certainly shouldn't rely on no interest loans to families when they're foreclosing on their futures. I spoke with a person in this neighborhood who said that they have found programs that will allow them to get a no interest loan. All they have to do is put their house on it, and then they die, and then that wealth is gone. It's taken from our community, and it's put in the hands of a bank. No, thank you. The last thing is we need temperature maximums for our properties. I live in an apartment building, which benefits from all the benefits of an apartment building. And also, if the power goes out, I have small windows. In Falcon Heights, they had a building that was built just like mine. The power went out. Internal units reached 94 degrees. They couldn't open their windows. Why are we not prioritizing the same sort of things we do with a temperature minimum? Your apartment or unit deserves to be a certain temperature so you can live, as we do temperature maximums. If you are a senior, if you have a disability, 74 or 75 degrees with no moving air is a death sentence. Our city should invest in the prevention of these sorts of harms. And we can do it together, and we can do it in a way that makes an impact for every single family in this city, whether they rent, whether they own, or they're just passing through and visiting your place. Thank you.
So we're going to restart the order. Molly, you were going to take our third question.
Yes.
To Molly Cole Hotel. Molly again.
Molly Cole. Who started? Molly.
Molly, yes. My apologies there. So her final question. For the first time in 20 years, St. Paul will renegotiate our contract with Xcel Energy. Other cities are using this revenue to fund climate solutions. Please name 3 climate solutions for which you'd advocate for with this money.
Getting to solutions. Good last question. So first, it's important to acknowledge what an incredible opportunity this is. To have a dedicated revenue stream that we can say is entirely devoted, this will take political will, but we have the ability to devote this revenue entirely to climate solutions in a moment of real budgetary challenges, in a moment of very difficult economic headwinds at the national and international level. This is huge to say we have this money, we are going to invest it in climate. We are not going to be a city that continues to invest only 0.5, half of 1% of our overall budget in climate. This is a real opportunity and one that we have to get right. So I have to say that when we think about what are our opportunities on the near horizon, this renegotiation of our franchise agreement with Xcel is number one. This is huge for our city. 3 solutions. You've heard me talk about residential electrification and the power of home quite a bit tonight, but that has to be number one. We don't have time to tinker. We have to invest in the solutions that we know work, and building out our residential electrification program and expanding that, again, beyond just homeowners, but to renters, small businesses, and other community institutions is essential. I will say I'd also like to see us build upon these successful programs. Power of Home and Healthy Home include grants for low-income residents to do solar. I think that there's a lot more we can build off of from this model, but that's where we start. Priority number 2, we've all mentioned it, geothermal energy networks. This is the way to get entire swaths of our community off of natural gas all at once. It allows us, if we do it right, to build towards energy democracy. It builds a stronger, more vibrant, healthier city for all of us, but it requires that upfront capital investment. So if we can use this dedicated revenue stream as a result of our franchise agreement renegotiation, we will have a significant head start on cities around the country, which to date have largely relied on federal dollars in order to make that initial investment. We need to build out the city plan. We need to continue to identify our community anchors, and we need the dedicated revenue. So that's number 2. And the third, so I want to go back to where I started. When we talk about what can cities do about climate, how do we reduce emissions? It's buildings and it's cars. That's where our emissions are coming from. We've talked a lot tonight about buildings, and that's essential. But when I think about what are the 3 things I want to invest that money in, the third piece relates to cars. I'd like to see us focus on creating a new fund aimed at reducing vehicle miles traveled, which is a key metric of any city's contributions to climate change. This draws on work that was built into the St. Paul's Climate Action Resilience Plan, and which makes clear that if we are going to meet our climate goals, we have to stop driving cars in the way that we are currently. Right now, St. Paulites drive 5.5 million miles a day. That is 2 billion miles a year. We are not going to hit our climate goals if we don't dramatically reduce those numbers. So I'd like to see a fund created that enables us to engage in neighborhood by neighborhood projects that make it easier for people to choose to bike, to choose to walk, take the bus, or take the train. What does this look like? It could look like investing in adding lights around our transit stops so people can get safely away from or to the bus stop or the train station. It might look like adding benches. So if you're elderly, disabled, or like me 2 years ago, 9 months pregnant, waiting for a train, you have a place to sit. It might look like supporting last mile infrastructure so that folks can take a shared bike or an electric scooter from that train station to their final destination. But that's the type of thinking that we're going to need to invest in if we are going to truly meet our climate goals. And using this dedicated revenue from our XL renegotiation is a key opportunity to do that.
Thank you. Whenever you're ready, Cole.
Thank you. So first things first, signing a 20-year agreement sucks. The folks across the river, I'm pretty sure they just got 5. If we want to be nimble in response to climate change, there's no reason we should ask for a 20-year franchise agreement. We should ask for 5, because we need to be able to move as the climate moves. And we should be able to change what we are asking for and change our relationship with our utility, not day by day, but in a way that reflects the way we actually live and the pace that this change is actually happening. I don't remember wildfire smoke 5 years ago. I certainly don't remember it 20 years ago, but I'm gonna remember it in 5 years from now. That's what I'm talking about. We need to make these agreements more reasonable for us as citizens and us as neighbors to engage with our utilities so we have the tools we need to. Now that we've got people and we're not putting profit first and we've got that all squared away, the next thing is I want to talk about community solar. So community solar is an incredible resource. You got your solar gardens all over the place. It gives people an opportunity to purchase green energy from their home, even if they have gas infrastructure already. It allows you to vote with your dollars and say, I believe green energy is worth it. However, these agreements are incredibly complicated. It's hard to square away. It's even harder to get out if you move. And that's if you're a homeowner. If you're a renter and you want to be a part of that too, you're boxed out. You can't buy green energy. You buy what's at the tap. I believe the city has a place to put together cooperative infrastructure like the community that I grew up in, where cooperative energy is just a way of doing things. cooperatively purchasing and managing these solar energy credits so that folks can vote with their dollars and say, I'm a renter and I want solar, without having to put a panel on their roof. Next, we need to talk about access to cooling. Our city has inherited generations of segregation and redlining, and that comes to every piece of infrastructure, including our access to water. If you live near Lake Phalen, you're lucky. It's up on the east side. If you live anywhere else in the city, I hope you have access to a pool on a hot day, especially if you have a kid, because you're kind of left in the lurch otherwise. Minneapolis has plenty of lakes. We don't. And pools. How do we look at the communities and resources we already have? We don't need to build new parks, but figure out ways to get kids and families in the water. Because when the heat is up, one of the tried and true ways as a Minnesotan is to get in the water. And that also means expanding our free swimming lessons for everyone, because no child should be at risk of drowning in our city. We can do splash pads for kids, pools if we have the money, but splash pads are a lot cheaper and a lot safer too. And we can put them in a lot of different places. We don't have to put them, in the place a pool might be. The last piece is talking about grid stress. We're going to have blackouts, but unlike many cities, we have a fleet of batteries rolling around every day. That's EV, and that's our car. How can we leverage the infrastructure and tools we already have to plug into our cooling and heating shelters during blackouts? Can we take an EV car, plug it into Newell Park, which is a heating and cooling shelter, when the power goes out to keep people safe? We can. Other communities do it. They're doing it down in Texas. You can plug in your F-150 Lightning to your home. We can do these things right here, right now. We don't need to wait. But we do need the willpower to do it. Utilities should serve those who are paying the bills. And if we're paying the bills, our utilities should work for us. As your councilman, my priority is making sure every part of the city is working for every single resident in it, Ward 4 and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. Chantel, whenever you're ready.
I think, it's really important that since we already have dollars that are being allocated, that we've, fight in the negotiations to get more dollars. That's always important. But then making sure that those resources are being allocated towards the programs that already exist and fully funding them as much as possible. When we talk about like healthy homes, for the reasons that I just spoke about, the experience that I've had, and then the power of home. I just think that really investing in that and making sure that we're getting as much as we can to the people. I think we do need to do some small grants like Molly was speaking about for individuals for the power of home, so that folks can do some basic things that they can get done individually. Often people don't qualify for those big grants because big corporate people come in and they just look more appealing in that process. So how do we create small grants for regular people? I would like to expand the forestry department. I grew up on Fuller and Victoria, and just the other day I was down on Victoria Avenue talking to my cousin on the block, on the end of the block, and I realized all of the trees were gone all the way from Victoria to Lexington. You could literally see Wilder from Victoria. And I was just thinking about how that was impacting the community environmentally, and then also really thinking about like the children in the community and how they used to play and, just have so much good times on the block, and what that's going to look like and feel like as this summer goes on. So making sure that if we're going to cut down a tree, we need to replace a tree. That just seems like basic math. So building out the tree canopy. Walkable and bikeable cities are really important to me. I lost my son in 2018. And before that point, he started working at Right Track at about 14 years old and fell in love with bikes and biking and all of those things. And he sat on a council at Macalester University to help build out some of these bike lanes. And that was something that he was really proud of. And when he turned 16, I'm like, son, hey, I got a car you can have because I'm getting a new car. He didn't want it. It sat in our backyard and he wouldn't drive it. And as somebody who was born in 1974, I'm just like, I was dumbfounded. Like, what do you mean? This is a nice Impala. What are you talking about? But he didn't want it. He wanted to ride his bike. And I started to learn to respect his position on that and really started to look at how that was reducing the number of cars on the road and seeing this new generation really all about that, right? And seeing how people are just biking from here to there and how it impacts our health and then also reduces the emissions in the air. And so also the other part about making a walkable city as an organizer, you get to know your community. You get to know the people around you. And that's something that I feel like we're losing just as a whole in our city. It's just getting to know your neighbors. You know, when I moved in, I started introducing myself to people and they were just kind of looking like, oh, hey, hi. But it was kind of, they were a little like perplexed as to why I was introducing myself and getting to know them. But I need you to watch my door when I'm not here, and I'm gonna watch yours, right? And go back to those days of really getting to know each other. And so walkable cities really help to contribute to community safety. And I guess that's where I was going with that. And so those would be 3 places that I would definitely make sure that we're investing our dollars.
Thank you. So that is all the time that we have for questions here tonight. I would like to thank each of our candidates for attending this forum. I would like to thank all of you in the audience, both in person and on Facebook, for taking time to attend tonight. And of course to Unidos and for Hamlin Church for putting this all together. Just a couple closing, people want to clap, go ahead. Couple closing comments here before we break for the evening. I'd like to take a moment to kind of ground ourselves in thinking about climate change here. So our team at Unidos has been canvassing door to door in all 7 wards within this city. And consistently, residents have been telling us that they are feeling the impacts of climate change right now. Whether that's high utility bills, whether that's extreme weather damage, whether that's high home insurance costs, or the myriad of other ways that climate change affects our lives. We know that these costs are only going to increase as climate change continues, and the time to act is now. Now, in those same conversations, and I've had this personally with dozens of residents, they're just as excited about getting climate solutions and climate action on the ground here in the city. When you talk to them about geothermal energy and heating their home with the innate heat of the earth, like their eyes light up and they get so excited. There's a lot of energy in this city to get climate action forward. That being said, there are only so much that individuals can do at their level. And unfortunately, with a state government kind of stuck at neutral right now and an antagonistic federal government, I think is a nice way to put it, we need the city now more than ever to be a leader on climate action. And there's plenty of opportunities for the city to take action in the coming year with a climate action and resiliency plan, with renegotiating our contract with Xcel Energy, and with the city budget. So before we break today, I would like to invite everyone in this room to attend Unidos's Climate Summit, which is going to be held on Saturday, June 14th, from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. at Gloria Day Church. Please take a moment now to sign up for it using the QR code on the back of the little question sheet you got. This is going to be our opportunity to show how important climate action is to take here in St. Paul and show the mayor our plan and give him the opportunity to respond. Final thoughts here. Please remember to vote for our Ward 4 candidates, any of which you choose on Tuesday, August 12th for the special election. And if you would like to take a flyer, chat with any Unidos folks if you're interested in any of our work or with the candidates as they're making their way out the door, feel free to do so. And of course, anyone on Facebook for a live stream, feel free to comment, share links, anything like that. Thank you all once again and have a good evening.
Thank you, Unidos!